The following program is a living history reenactment of events that took place at Camp Ford, a Civil War prisoner of war camp located near Tyler, Texas.
Oh, who goes there?
We're concerned citizens from Tyler.
This event is being sponsored by the Carnegie History Center and Tyler Chamber of Commerce and other organizations, and seeks to commemorate events and activities that were happening on this spot 125 years ago today. It is based on actual records, documents such as court records from where attorneys were incarcerated for having Union sympathies. And what we're trying to show is that one, history is not dull. Okay. The people who are here as volunteer living historians are actually assuming roles of individuals who were here 125 years ago and doing what's called first-person history, where they're talking to the visitor as if that visitor had stepped back or been transported back in 125 years in time. Camp Ford was the largest prisoner of war camp west of the Mississippi River. It also had the distinction of having the lowest mortality rate of any prisoner of war camp, north or south, during the Civil War.
The shooting of a prisoner, Private Alan Moorhead of the 26th Indiana, by one of the militia guard, Frank Smith, caused a near riot among the other prisoners, which led to the building of the stockade.
What amazed me most about this is that the people, once they get in first person, they are that character throughout the day. They build with the anger. When they chase prisoners, they chase them, they throw them down. It's all very authentic and very entertaining, and I think the bottom line is they'll be very educational.
In November of 1863, an atmosphere of panic pervaded Smith County and the city of Tyler. Citizens were alarmed that Yankee prisoners might escape and burn their town. In fact, several prisoners had town privileges and could go into Tyler to buy provisions.
Right now we're guarding approximately 600 Yankees, and the situation is fairly tense. In addition to the frequent escape attempts the Yankees are making simply because there's no stockade, this young man over here, Sergeant Curtis, was dispatched by Colonel Allen to the southeast part of the county and has uncovered details of a plot of grave concern to the citizens. I'll let Sergeant Curtis fill you in on the details.
As the Lieutenant told you, my name is First Sergeant Jim Curtis. I'm a member of the R.T.P. Lane Rangers. My unit was captured, was raised around Marshall. We served during the war. I was captured along with the rest of my unit around Arkansas Post. After being a guest of the Yankees for a while, I was exchanged. As soon as the rest of my company is exchanged, we'll go back. We have some pressing business east of the Mississippi, I assure you. Be that as it may, I was available for the Colonel's detail. To wit, to take a federal coat, pass myself off as a Union prisoner, and uncover a plot that he learned was about in his town.
I can't really tell you why I'm here. I'll tell you why they say I'm here. They say that I have been accused of inciting a riot here in the city of Tyler and in Smith County. Actually, I'm out here incarcerated with these Yankee prisoners down here. They won't even let me file a writ of habeas corpus at the courthouse. I have sent a writ to the colonel. He wads it up and throws it on the ground. My problem is that I am not a Confederate. I'm a Texan. I have only chosen to dissent, to speak up.
I was able to convince George Whitmore, who is one of y'all's local attorneys. I understand he was a DA for a while. And a lawyer named Rosenbaum was also implicated in it, as well as George's brother, William. Those men had a plot to stage a mass prison break here and come into the town of Tyler and destroy it.
Because the prisoners were confined in an area near thick woods, it was possible for some to escape on foot undetected by the few guards posted to watch them. The guards devised a diversionary plan to bring the prisoners together for roll call while additional sentries were sent deep into the woods to surprise would-be escapees.
For roll call and keep them fronted toward us so that we have time to move the men back. That way they won't know it's happening.
At least this time we'll give them a little bit of surprise if they try to escape.
Yeah.
That one surgeon needs to be tied down or foot tied or something. He's bad about running off.
Well, we're getting some ball and chain.
He's been warned 3 or 4 times, and the next time he runs off, we may accidentally hit him.
All prisoners held within the deadline were called together for a formal roll call. A sergeant from among their ranks conducted the roll under the watchful eye of the militia guard and the Confederate soldiers. The military personnel were counted first, followed by civilians who had been incarcerated there because they were thought to be a threat to the safety of the community. Tensions ran high between the prisoners and those who were posted to guard them. The guards, for the most part, were made up of citizens from the community who had been conscripted into a militia. They were largely untrained and ill-equipped for the job at hand. As the roll call continued, guards on horseback and on foot moved into the trees, stationing themselves well away from the compound in order to surprise any prisoners who might flee through the woods. Colonel J.B. Leake was the ranking commander of the prisoners held at Camp Ford. To him fell the responsibility of controlling the mounting tensions. Many citizens from the town would come and visit with relatives posted at the campsite. Often, they would talk of loved ones far away in battle.
Boys back home, we can get settled down and get them Yanks back up there where they belong. I sure miss them, boys.
We can't hold them safe.
There are only 71 guards out here and over 600 prisoners. So at any time they want, they actually could outnumber us and get us. We generally have only 19 guards on in the daytime and probably double that number at night. But there's no way we can control that number of prisoners without a stockade.
My father's business was burned in Mississippi, and I drifted on down into Louisiana and got in that battle. I am a civilian. I helped with the prisoners coming up here to Tyler, Texas. And I like this area, and I hope when this conflict is over to live here.
Conditions at the camp were extreme, due in part to inclement weather.
Think it's going to rain some more?
Hope not.
Well, I hope the fires don't go out. We don't have any dry clothes if they do. I don't know. Just hope to find dry wood. Woods like this is pretty thick.
Yankees are really giving us trouble.
I wanted to check. They said in town that y'all were having a lot of outbreaks. There were some Yankees in town yesterday, but they caught them.
Well, they break out once in a while. We don't have enough men to patrol the whole area.
Well, what are y'all going to do?
We're trying to build a stockade up around the outer wall.
I have a list of all the Yankees from
The Confederate command of Camp Ford attempted to instill as much military decorum as possible in the daily routine, incorporating the local militia guard into the ranks of the few trained military personnel present. Daily life in East Texas went on as normally as possible during this period of time. To maintain calm among the local populace, Colonel Allen dispatched personnel from Camp Ford into Tyler and the surrounding farms to warn the people about possible prisoner escapes.
Yes?
Sergeant Moses Whitmore from Tyler, Militiaman, come in now.
Certainly, Sergeant. Is there something we can help you with?
Yes, ma'am. May I place my rifle?
Certainly. Ladies, Sergeant Moses Blackwell from Tyler Militia's here to visit with us. Pleased to meet you, sir.
Pleased to make your acquaintance, ladies.
This is Mrs. Amanda Stone.
Mrs. Stone.
And Mrs. Williams, the good doctor's wife. Nice to meet you.
Any news from camp?
Yes, ma'am. I'm afraid it's not good. Several of the Yankee prisoners escaped this morning, and it's rumored that they're heading here into town. The militia commander asked me to stop by and check with you and make sure your ladies were okay.
Well, I'll tell you, if any of those dirty Yankees show up here, I have a gun and I'll shoot them.
Any other news from camp besides the possible escape?
Yes, ma'am. Over the past several days, the Yankee prisoners have been in a great uproar. We've ended up having to shoot several of them. 2 have died, and the other 2 are in the hospital being treated by our Confederate surgeons now.
Perhaps they'll die soon, too.
With any luck. And where are you from, sir?
Until recently, my father and I operated a large farm outside of town. He died earlier this year, and now I'm responsible for the entire operations. It's a little over 450 acres, and we have approximately 150 slaves.
450 acres?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you available? Are you married?
No, ma'am, I'm not.
I have somebody I'd like for you to meet. Nancy June? I have somebody in here I'd like for you to meet. Nancy June, this is Sergeant Moses Blackwelder of the Militia. We're celebrating her 16th birthday today, and as she has reached marriageable age, we're looking for a proper young man to come and call on her. A wealthy one, such as yourself.
Well, I'm certain with a young lady as lovely as Nancy June is, there shouldn't be any shortage of suitors.
Well, I'll tell you, we've had a regular stream of them through the house this weekend, but you definitely are the most qualified.
Much of what is known about this period of East Texas history comes from a diary kept by Kate Stone, a refugee from Louisiana.
Mama and I just got back from our trip to Camp Ford. We were getting the release of Mr. Smith, who was drafted and is a refugee, and he's too old to be drafted. I don't see why these townspeople hate the refugees in the first place. They're so behind the times. Nancy June, who is a friend of mine, is celebrating her 16th birthday. While we're at Camp Ford, we did find her a couple of suitors to come by and call on her for her 16th coming out party. We keep hearing news from Camp Ford that there are escaped prisoners. They have come by and asked for our slaves, the older men and the younger men, to help build the stockades. During the night, I keep going to bed and pulling the covers over my head in fear of escaped prisoners raiding our place.
Good morning, Mitty. How are you?
Well, I just don't know with all these Yankees running around here loose.
It's just terrible, isn't it?
It sure is. You know, it's not so bad now that there's more here, but a month ago when there was just a few, 3 of them, and 2 of the guards came by here looking for something to eat.
I know, and it's really shocking thinking about those citizens like Mr. Whitmore and Mr. Rosenbaum, how they could conspire against their own people. It's bad enough having those old Yankees here and having to worry about them and all those refugees from Louisiana who put on their fancy airs like they're better than us. Then to have to worry about your own people. I can't sleep nights worrying about if they're going to escape or not, and they say there are 500 more on their way.
500 more?
My husband has offered our slaves to put up a pen to keep them in.
Tradesmen from throughout the community were called upon to help provide Camp Ford with the materials needed to fortify the compound. It was wartime, and the people responded to the call of the Confederacy with their labor and their skills. The presence of Camp Ford brought the far-off war much closer to home.
Well, quite frankly, I resent being here to start with. The main reason I resent this prison camp is they're not using it as a military camp, they're using it as a catch-all camp. We've got civilians out here. Actually, we've got 3 or 4 of your citizens voted your elections that are in our prison camp, and I resent it. They're Northern sympathizers, I understand that. But your guards are militia. These are veteran troops. Do you realize that yesterday I had a man killed 3 feet from the deadline? They, by their rules, restrict us from this wire to right here for 3 feet. They will not bother us. 5 feet back, one of my men was shot. I might add, he was shot in the back.
Originally, sir, I'm from Massachusetts, near Boston. As a matter of fact, they got me in Galveston the 1st of January, 1863. I've been here 11 months, 13 days. Not so bad as this. They'd have me down near Houston, but they moved us away from the coast. I think the Navy's coming. That's what they're afraid of. Heard rumors that they're in Brownsville already. They can be here in a matter of weeks. And then we'll be going home, and you people can have this place.
The situation's pretty tense here because we don't have enough manpower. We're trying to overrun our 71 militia guards, which are poorly trained and poorly equipped for this type of duty, but they're doing the best they can with the weapons that they have and the training that they have.
Barefoot farm boys made up a large part of the militia. Homemade uniforms were thrown together, and the militia guard had the appearance of the ragtag group they were. For many of them, their experience at Camp Ford would become a highlight of their lives, a time when they were soldiers instead of plowmen. Camp Ford gave them stories they would tell to their grandchildren, passing the history of that time down by word of mouth.
Because she lost her family right beside me.
I have ordered the planters of this county to bring 1/2 of their male slaves aged 15 to 50 to this post to erect a stockade. We do not have the military manpower to erect such a facility, and certainly it is in the best interest of the citizens of this county that they build a device to keep them protected from these Yankee prisoners. I have also ordered the arrest of William Whitmore, the brother of George Whitmore, who, along with George Rosenbaum, we have already detained for entering into a seditious conspiracy with these Yankee prisoners to aid in their escape. I have requested orders from General Smith in Shreveport as to what to do with these prisoners, but pending orders from General Smith, these traitors will be detained and they will not be allowed to file a writ of habeas corpus with the civil courts. We do not have the luxury to engage in the niceties of civil law in an emergency situation such as this.
The prisoners at Camp Ford were to be contained in a stockade that measured 18 feet high, enclosing an area of 2 to 4 acres. The work was completed between the 14th and the 24th of November, 1863.
Come here, let me show you something. Huh?
Drawings made at that time have preserved for history what the campground looked like. With the completion of the stockade, the panic in the community subsided, and as John Green, a federal prisoner, noted, with unarmed prisoners now securely confined, the people of Tyler were relieved of their fear. After the battles in Louisiana and Arkansas in April of 1864, the camp's population skyrocketed to a peak of over 5,000 prisoners in June. With this crowding, it became necessary to enlarge the stockade to cover an area of about 10 acres. The Whitmores and Rosenbaum remained confined at Camp Ford until November of 1864, when they were finally released. In May of 1865, with the end of the war, all the prisoners were released and the stockade was abandoned. George Rosenbaum disappears from history and nothing more is known of him. George Whitmore, however, became Smith County's first Reconstruction District Attorney in 1866. He filed civil suits and had indictments returned against his oppressors. William Whitmore died in 1867, and George Whitmore pursued his case unsuccessfully for several years until he too died. The land occupied by Camp Ford has reverted to an East Texas woodland. It shows little evidence of the exciting events that once transpired there.
By the rising of the moon, by the rising of the moon, and 1,000 pikes were flashing by the rising of the moon. Oh, then, tell me, Sean O'Farrell, where the gathering is to be. At the old spot by the river, right well known to you and me. One more word for signal spoken, whistle half the marching tune. For the army fights for freedom by the rising of the moon. By the rising of the moon. By the rising of the moon. And this army fights for freedom by the rising of the moon. By the rising of the moon, by the rising of the moon. For this army fights for freedom by the rising of the moon. By the rising of the moon, by the rising of the moon. And this army fights for freedom, 'tis the rising of the moon.